Report now! She barked, turning to her second-in-command, who struggled to maintain composure. They're fucking us up, Commander! He yelled back, his voice strained over the roar of another blast. Draxian cruisers just took out the East Ridge colony. Casualties are massive. Lara's eyes narrowed, her jaw set tight. Get me a line to Earth Command. Tell those assholes if they don't send backup now, we'll have nothing left but a graveyard. The pre-dawn tranquility of Titan's colony was shattered by the screech of alarms, jolting Commander Lara Holt from a restless sleep. Springing from her bunk, she dashed towards the command center, the metallic clang of her boots echoing through the corridors. As she burst through the doors, the scene inside was chaos personified. Officers and technicians scrambled across the room, frantically maneuvering between flickering screens and spitting sparks from damaged consoles. Status report. Lara bellowed over the din. Draxian cruisers, at least 5 of them, descending into our atmosphere, shouted Lieutenant Nash, his face illuminated by the ominous glow of the radar. Lara's eyes darted to the display, watching red blips descend with terrifying precision. Launch interceptors, and get those defense cannons online now. Her commands cut sharply through the panic, grounding her crew with purpose amidst the burgeoning catastrophe. The ground shuddered violently, a harrowing testament to the Draxians' first strike. Plumes of smoke billowed on the horizon, the orange flames stark against Titan's gray expanse. They're targeting our energy hubs, a technician cried out, voice cracking under the strain. Gritting her teeth, Lara keyed the colony-wide intercom. All personnel, this is Commander Holt. Engage emergency protocols. Evacuate non-essential areas and report to your designated shelters. This is not a drill. Turning back to the tactical map, Lara watched as the tiny symbols representing their scant air forces met the enemy. It was a desperate gambit against the Draxians' superior numbers. Nash approached her, his expression grim. Commander, communications with Earth are being jammed, but I managed to get a message out before they cut us off. Good work, she nodded, clenching her fists as she observed another explosion rocking the edge of the colony. We'll hold them off as long as we can. The command center trembled again, a haunting reminder that their time might be shorter than anyone dared admit. Amidst a cacophony of alerts, Lara remained a pillar of resolve, though her heart raced with the knowledge of what was likely to come. We have incoming on the western sector. Another officer updated urgently, tracking the incoming fire. Direct hit to the residential unit. Lara's heart sank with the realization that many lives, were being lost. Focus all remaining defenses on protecting the civilian areas. I won't abandon them, she declared staunchly. As they coordinated their dwindling resources, a young ensign approached, his face pale but determined. Commander, I've got Earth Command, they're patching through. The screen flickered, and the strained face of General Armand appeared, lines of worry etched deeply into his features. Lara, we're doing everything we can. Reinforcements are en route, but... Another explosion rocked the station, cutting off the transmission and plunging the room into a brief silence, broken only by the distant echoes of destruction. Lara steadied herself, drawing a deep breath to quell the rising despair. Listen up, everyone. We knew this day might come. We are the shield of humanity on this frontier. If we go down fighting. Prepare for ground defense, and keep those shelters secure. Her voice, a resonant command amid the chaos, rallied her team. They responded with renewed vigor, each person moving with purposeful speed to execute her orders. The aftermath of the Draxian assault left Titan's colony smoldering, a stark scar on the cold landscape. Back on Earth, the news hit like a tidal wave, engulfing every media outlet with images of destruction and heart-wrenching tales of loss. In the war room deep within the presidential complex, tension crackled in the air as President Mara Kinsey convened an emergency session with her top military advisors and cabinet members. Mara stood at the head of the long, sleek table, her posture rigid with resolve but her eyes betraying the turmoil beneath. I want options, she demanded crisply, her voice cutting through the murmur of somber discussions. And I want them now. We cannot let this stand. General Harrows, clad in his decorated uniform, was the first to respond, his demeanor as hard as the metals on his chest. Madam President, with all due respect, a surgical strike won't suffice. The Draxians consider us a minor threat. It's time we correct that perception. Mara's gaze swept the room, considering her advisor's eager or apprehensive faces. And what do you propose, General? A series of coordinated strikes on their military assets. We have the capability to hit them hard and fast, to show that any action against Earth will carry severe consequences, Harrows replied, laying out a map with potential targets. Secretary of State Alan Reeves interjected, his tone cautious. We must consider the ramifications. This isn't just about military strategy. The galactic community is watching. We risk turning public opinion against us if we act recklessly. Mara nodded slowly, absorbing each point. This is not just about retaliation. It's about deterrence. But let's be clear, we target only military installations. I will not authorize strikes against civilian populations. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging heavy. Prepare the plans, General. I want them on my desk within the hour. Alan, start drafting a statement for the press. I want the galaxy to understand why we're taking this action. As the meeting adjourned, Mara remained behind, staring at the star map glittering on the screen. Each point of light represented lives, decisions, potential fallout. She whispered to herself, what have we become, if not defenders of our people? The operation was set into motion with ruthless efficiency. Earth's fleet, powered by the latest propulsion technology, made quick work of the journey to the Draxian outposts. As the ships positioned themselves, pilots and commanders double-checked their coordinates, their targets strictly military as ordered. In the silence of space, the first missiles launched, tracing arcs of destruction across the black canvas. Each explosion marked a precise hit, a Draxian weapons depot, a communications array, an airbase, all reduced to rubble within moments. Back on Earth, Mara watched the live feeds, her face an impassive mask, but her hands clenched tightly behind her back. The screens flickered with each successful strike, and a part of her recoiled at the necessity of violence, at the ease with which they dealt death from afar. When the last target had been neutralized, Mara addressed the world. Her image, broadcast on every available channel, was both stern and sorrowful. Today, we took necessary actions to protect our citizens and assert our right to peace. Let it be known that Earth does not seek war, but we will not shy away from defending our own. As the dust settled on the Draxian outposts, the cost of Earth's fierce response became apparent not only in the wreckage strewn across alien soil, but also in the wave of repercussions that swept through the galactic community. The once muted corridors of the Galactic Council were now abuzz with urgent voices calling for sanctions against Earth, condemning the ferocity of its strikes. Ambassador Trell of the Zenith Confederacy stood at the forefront of the council chamber, his voice resonant and filled with indignation. Such aggression, Trell boomed, undermines the very fabric of our interstellar agreements. Earth must be held accountable for escalating violence instead of pursuing diplomatic channels. On Earth, the public's initial fervor for retribution began to wane as broadcasts from the Galactic Council aired, revealing the breadth of destruction caused by their forces. Scenes of ruined alien infrastructure and homeless alien families sparked a different kind of fire in the hearts of humanity. Protests erupted in major cities around the globe, banners flying with slogans painted in bold, pleading for peace and decrying the government's actions. In a dimly lit room of the presidential complex, President Mara Kinsey watched the protests with a sinking heart, her earlier resolve crumbling under the weight of her decisions. Next to her, Lara Holt, freshly returned from Titan, stood in somber agreement. Their private conversation was punctuated by a palpable tension. We aim to prevent further losses, Mara began, her voice barely above a whisper, but I fear we may have lost part of our humanity instead. Lara, hardened by the horrors she'd witnessed firsthand on Titan, responded with equal gravity. Madam President, we did what we thought necessary. But it's clear now we need a new path. Nodding slowly, Mara turned back to the screens showing news coverage of the Council's emergency sessions. Prepare a proposal, Lara. Something that shows our willingness to rebuild, not just destroy. Emboldened by a newfound purpose, Lara worked with Earth's diplomats to draft a comprehensive peace initiative. The plan included reparations for the affected Draxian communities and a proposal for a new interstellar treaty focusing on conflict resolution and mutual defense. Meanwhile, the narrative within Earth's media began to shift. Journalists who had once fervently supported the strikes now questioned the long-term consequences of such military actions. Interviews with war veterans and diplomats highlighted the need for sustainable peace strategies, and public opinion started to tilt back towards reconciliation. In a crucial broadcast, Lara presented the peace initiative publicly, her demeanor earnest as she addressed both her fellow humans and the wider galaxy. Today, we extend our hands, not in defense or defiance, but in fellowship. Let us repair the bonds broken by fear and misunderstanding. The proposal, transmitted across interstellar networks, reached the Galactic Council and the Draxian public. Initial skepticism was slowly overshadowed by cautious optimism. Discussions began, tentative and fraught with past grievances, yet underpinned by a shared desire to avoid further conflict. Back on Earth, Mara met with her advisors, their faces a mosaic of the diverse humanity they represented. This is just the beginning, she stated firmly. We must be as committed to peace as we were to defense. Our legacy will not be defined by the wars we fight, but by the peace we create. The galactic community watched with bated breath as Earth's delegation, led by President Mara Kinsey and Commander Lara Holt, arrived at the Galactic Council's headquarters for what was touted as a historic peace summit. The grand auditorium, usually filled with the murmur of countless dialects, fell eerily silent as the humans took center stage, the weight of past actions casting long shadows over the gathered representatives. Mara stepped up to the podium, her gaze sweeping across the sea of alien faces. We come before you today, not to defend our past actions, but to forge a path forward for us all, she began, her voice steady despite the palpable tension. Earth has proposed a peace initiative, including reparations and the establishment of a joint conflict resolution committee. We pledge to uphold the principles of peace and cooperation that this council stands for. Whispers rustled through the chamber as Trell, still a vocal critic, stood. While Earth's change of heart is commendable, how do we ensure this is not another strategic maneuver? Your recent actions have left deep scars across worlds. Lara responded, stepping forward. We understand the doubts and fears our actions have incited. I've seen the consequences firsthand and carry them with me every day. Our commitment to this initiative is complete, not out of strategy, but necessity. The Draxian representative, General Zoran, rose slowly, his voice thick with emotion. Many of us lost kin and kind on that day. How do you propose to mend such losses? Mara nodded solemnly. We begin by acknowledging each life lost and the grief we've caused. Our reparations will support the rebuilding of your communities. But more than that, we seek to build bridges through shared projects, cultural exchanges, and policy reforms. This treaty is just the first step. The session extended into hours of negotiations, with Lara and Mara actively participating in roundtable discussions, fielding questions, and providing clarifications. The Earth delegation worked tirelessly, navigating complex galactic legalities and cultural sensitivities, striving to transform diplomatic platitudes into actionable commitments. As the day drew to a close, the Council prepared to vote on the Earth's proposal. The air was thick with anticipation. A rejection could mean further isolation for Earth, while acceptance would pave the way for a new era of interstellar relations. When the votes were cast, the result was displayed across the screens. The proposal was accepted, though not unanimously. Relief mixed with resolve washed over Mara and Lara as they thanked the assembly. The council hall slowly emptied, but the work was far from over. The Earth delegation, along with representatives from various planets, including Draxians, convened in smaller groups to discuss the specifics of the treaty's implementation. Lara sat with the Draxian delegates, sharing stories of loss and resilience, finding common ground in their shared desire for peace. Outside the council chamber, news feeds across the galaxy broadcasted the summit's success. Back on Earth, citizens watched, a mix of pride and contemplation on their faces. The streets, once scenes of protest, now hosted gatherings where people watched and discussed the unfolding events. The dawn of a new era began as Mara Kinsey and Lara Holt stood before the Galactic Council to finalize the treaty, the documents ripe with the promise of a peaceful future. The auditorium was filled with representatives from across the galaxy, each eyeing the humans with a mix of skepticism and newfound respect. As Mara signed the treaty, her hands steady despite the weight of history they were overturning, she addressed the assembly. Today, we do not just sign a treaty, we vow to remember the lives lost both human and Draxian. We accept the moral responsibility for our actions and commit to ensuring that history does not repeat itself. Lara, standing beside Mara, took her turn to speak, her voice resonant in the vast chamber. The scars of war remind us that peace is not merely the absence of conflict but the presence of justice and compassion. Our actions against civilians were indefensible, and in seeking forgiveness, we acknowledge our grave mistakes and pledge to uphold the sanctity of all life. The hall echoed with applause, not just for the words spoken but for the genuine commitment they sensed from Earth's leaders. As the delegates began to disperse, a young Draxian approached Lara, his expression one of cautious curiosity. "Commander Holt, your words. They give us hope," he said, hesitantly extending a hand. Lara took his hand, her grip firm. "And your willingness to engage gives us the opportunity to make amends. Together, we can build a future where this," she paused, gesturing to the treaty, "is our legacy." The treaty became a cornerstone of galactic relations, and back on Earth, it was celebrated as a step towards redemption. Schools taught the consequences of the war, ensuring that the next generation understood the heavy cost of disregarding civilian lives, fostering a culture rooted deeply in the principles of peace and empathy.